Some nights your body is exhausted, but your mind suddenly becomes wide awake. It replays one sentence you said earlier, then jumps to a future that has not happened yet. Then it drags up a tiny mistake from years ago, as if it still needs solving. You tell yourself to stop thinking, but the thought only gets louder. This is why just let it go can feel almost impossible for an overthinker. You may not be refusing to let go. Your brain may simply believe that thinking is keeping you safe. In this video, we will call that pattern the overthinking engine. It is not a clinical term or a diagnosis. It is a simple way to understand what happens when your mind keeps analyzing, predicting, reviewing, and rehearsing. The engine usually turns on when something feels uncertain, emotionally risky, unresolved, embarrassing, or outside your control. It tries to create safety by thinking through every possible angle before life can surprise you. So when someone says, "just let it go," your nervous system may hear something different. It may hear, "stop checking, stop preparing," or "walk forward," without knowing if it is safe. That is why letting go can feel less like peace and more like dropping your only map. To other people, overthinking can look like hesitation, drama, perfectionism, or unnecessary worry. But inside the mind, it often feels more like protection than choice. Psychology often connects this pattern with rumination, threat prediction, emotional regulation, and difficulty tolerating uncertainty. The mind is not always trying to hurt you. Sometimes it is trying too hard to prevent pain. The first fuel for the overthinking engine is uncertainty. The human brain does not like blank spaces. When it does not know, it starts filling in possibilities. Maybe they are upset. Maybe I said the wrong thing. Maybe this decision will ruin everything. None of these thoughts have to be true to feel urgent. They feel urgent because the brain often prefers a painful explanation over no explanation at all. A clear fear can sometimes feel safer than an unclear unknown. Your brain is constantly predicting what may happen next based on what has happened before. When reality does not give enough information, the mind may keep searching for a missing piece. For an overthinker, that missing piece can feel impossible to ignore. You're not always looking for perfection. You may simply be looking for enough certainty to breathe. The second fuel is threat scanning. For some people, the mind learned early that small changes could matter. A colder tone, a delayed reply, a quiet room, or a strange facial expression could feel like warning signs. This does not mean every overthinker has trauma, but for some, overthinking was once an adaptation. If you had to read the room to stay emotionally safe, your brain may have learned to scan quickly. Later in life, the environment may change, but the scanning system can remain active. A friend replies late, and your mind starts building a case. A partner seems quiet, and your thoughts begin searching for hidden meaning. A coworker sounds distant, and your body reacts before you have evidence. The overthinking engine does not wait for proof. It only needs a small signal of uncertainty. This is why telling yourself stop thinking often does not work. To your brain, stopping the thought may feel like stopping the watch. And stopping the watch may feel like becoming vulnerable again. So the mind keeps running, not because it enjoys the noise, but because it fears being unprepared. The third fuel is shame. Many overthinkers are not only worried about the future, they are trapped in old social moments. Why did I say that? Did I sound strange? Did they think less of me? These memories are not always important logically, but they can feel important emotionally. Shame is powerful because it is tied to social safety. Being misunderstood, rejected, embarrassed, or disappointing someone can feel like a threat to belonging. So the brain replays the moment, hoping to extract a rule. Next time, say less. Next time, smile differently. Next time, do not need so much. The mind is trying to prevent the same pain from happening again. But some moments do not have a perfect rule hidden inside them. A facial expression cannot always be decoded. A conversation cannot always be repaired in your head. Another person's reaction cannot be fully controlled by your behavior. So the engine begins to spin in place. It feels like problem solving, but it may actually be circling an emotion that has not been comforted. The fourth fuel is control. This may be the hidden reason overthinking is so hard to release. When life feels uncertain, thinking can create the feeling that you are still doing something. Even if you're not taking action, analyzing can feel like a form of effort. At least I'm not ignoring it. At least I'm preparing. At least I'm trying. That tiny sense of control can become addictive, even when the process is painful. The more afraid you are of being wrong, the more possibilities your mind wants to inspect. The more afraid you are of regret, the more your mind wants to rehearse every outcome. The more you believe mistakes are dangerous, the harder it becomes to choose and rest. Overthinking can become a mental waiting room where no answer is ever final. The fifth fuel is using analysis to avoid feeling. Some people do not ignore their emotions, they intellectualize them almost instantly. Why am I like this? What does this mean? Was my reaction too much? These questions can be useful, but sometimes they hide a simpler truth. I felt hurt. I felt afraid. I felt unwanted. I needed reassurance. Overthinkers are often not emotionless. They may be full of emotion, but trained to translate it into analysis. Before they feel sad, they investigate the sadness. Before they feel angry, they question whether they are allowed to be angry. Before they rest, they ask whether they have earned the right to rest. This can become exhausting because the mind keeps working while the body remains unsoothed. You may understand the situation perfectly and still feel tight inside. That does not mean you failed to think clearly enough. It may mean the problem is not asking for another explanation. It may be asking for comfort, grounding, or permission to feel what is already there. The sixth fuel is emotional responsibility. Many overthinkers are not only managing their own reactions, they are also imagining how everyone else might feel. Did I disappoint them? Did I make things awkward? Did I hurt someone without realizing it? Their mind opens too many windows at once. One window tracks tone, another tracks facial expressions, another tracks the future of the relationship. Eventually, connection starts to feel like a system that must be constantly maintained. This is why some people feel tired after even simple interactions. They were not just talking, they were monitoring, adjusting, predicting, and protecting. So the goal is not to attack your mind for overthinking. A safer first step is to notice when the overthinking engine has turned on. You can gently ask, am I solving a real problem, or am I trying to feel safe? This question creates a small space between you and the loop. If you are solving a real problem, your thinking usually becomes clearer. You can identify a next step, write something down, ask a question, or make a small plan. But if you're trying to feel safe, the thoughts often multiply. Every answer creates another question. Every possibility creates another fear. That is when thinking is no longer a tool, it has become a search for emotional certainty. A helpful practice is to sort your thoughts into 3 quiet categories. First, what can I act on? Second, what is outside my control right now? Third, what feeling am I trying not to feel? If something can be acted on, choose one small next step. Not a perfect solution, just a small doorway out of the loop. Write the draft, set the reminder, ask the question, make the list shorter. Action tells the brain, this has somewhere to go. If something is outside your control, try naming it as uncertainty rather than danger. You do not have to pretend you like not knowing. You can simply say, I do not know yet, and that feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes it is just the feeling of not having an answer. If the thought is covering an emotion, try naming the emotion without solving it. This may be disappointment, this may be fear, this may be shame, this may be loneliness. When an emotion is named gently, it can become less like a shadow and more like a part of you asking for care. You do not have to solve every feeling to survive it. Sometimes the nervous system settles when it realizes you are listening. What many overthinkers need is not another person saying, stop thinking so much. They need to understand that their brain may have been working very hard to protect them. It used analysis to prevent surprise. It used prediction to prevent rejection. It used review to prevent repeating a painful mistake. The problem is not that your mind is broken. The problem is that a protection system can become too loud when it never gets a chance to rest. Letting go does not always mean suddenly becoming calm. Sometimes it means moving from I must know everything to be safe toward I can handle the next step. That is a much gentler goal. You do not have to process your whole life tonight. You do not have to predict every reaction before you speak. You do not have to earn rest by finishing every thought. If overthinking is seriously affecting your sleep, relationships, or daily life, Professional support can help. That does not mean you failed. It means you do not have to manage the engine alone. The overthinking engine is not your enemy. It is a tired protection system that learned to keep you awake. And slowly, with patience, you can teach it something new. You can teach it that quiet can also be safe,